Whenever you're ready, give a thumbs up.
Okay.
And go ahead. He said it's on.
Welcome everyone to the regular special meeting of the City of Morgantown Board of Zoning Appeals. Please turn off all cell phones or other devices that may disrupt these proceedings. It is the duty of this board to consider requests for relief from the requirements of the city's zoning regulations, to consider conditional use permits or permit requests, and to hear administrative appeals. The board conducts business in the following order: review, amend, and approve minutes of a previous meeting. We will then move on to unfinished business and conduct or take up new business, and then conclude with announcements from staff. Each request is heard in the order that it appears on the agenda. For each conditional use and variance request, the following is done. I will introduce the agenda item, and the planning division will present a staff report which may or may not offer a recommendation. The applicant agent will be asked to present their justification for their request, which may include questions by members of the board. We will then open a public hearing to hear testimony in support of or in opposition to the request. Rules regarding public testimony are as follows. Anyone wishing to testify during the public hearing may do so once recognized by me, or may, in lieu of oral testimony, submit written testimony to the chair. All recognized speakers must approach the podium, state their name and address for the record, and speak clearly into the microphone. All comments must be addressed to the board, should be relevant to the application, and may not be of a personal nature or personal attacks. All speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the speaker, that time will not be counted toward his/her 5 minutes. If there is a large number of speakers, including many who are part of groups or organizations, we may, to avoid repetitive comments, elect to ask for a representative to speak on behalf of the group or organization. Speakers are notified that irrelevant comments or comments of a personal nature or personal attacks may result in the speaker forfeiting his/her opportunity to participate in the public hearing. I may elect to recognize the applicant agent at the end of the public hearing to provide rebuttal or additional comments, which will be limited to an additional 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the applicant agent, that time will not be counted toward the total of 5 minutes. After all testimony is heard, I will declare the public hearing closed, and no further public comment will be permitted. Uncivil, unruly, and/or disruptive behavior at any time during this meeting is prohibited and will result in removal from this public meeting. State law requires the board to consider findings of fact for each conditional use and variance request. The request cannot be granted unless a majority of the quorum present finds the positive of all of the findings of fact. The board may elect to continue the hearing to another date if it needs additional information. Applicants and requesting parties will be notified in writing by the planning division of the board's findings and conclusions. Regardless of whether a request is approved or denied, decisions of the board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County within 30 days upon receipt of the written notification. Any work done relating to decisions rendered by this board during this 30-day period is at the sole financial risk of the applicant. Thank you for your consideration and respect for these proceedings and the opinions of all meeting participants. We're going to call the meeting to order. Let's take the roll. Mr. Schomburger. Here. Mr. Plyler.
Here.
I'm sorry. Ms. Felt, our newest member. Mr. Ms. Felt, are you present?
Present.
And Mr. DeWitt.
Present.
And I am present too. We do have a quorum, so we can continue with the agenda for this evening. We have meeting minutes from last month's meeting to consider and accept. Did everyone have a chance to review? Any comments? regarding the meeting minutes for September 25th. So we move to accept the meeting minutes for our regular meeting, September 25th, 2024.
Second the motion.
Okay, so motion to accept and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Duly accepted the meeting minutes from our last meeting, Wednesday, September 25th, 2024. Moving on to new business, the first agenda item is VAR 24-158, Michael Harker, 308 Grandview Avenue, request by Mr. Harker on behalf of the property owner for variance relief from Article 1331.08 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code regarding the height of accessory structures and uses in residential districts, City Tax District 10, in the 6th Ward, Tax Map 41, Parcel 147, in the R1A Single Family Residential District.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. If I may, just 2 comments before we go into this particular case.
Yes.
One, I just want to welcome our new zoning administrator, Taylor Thompson. I'm sure if you guys have got to meet him yet, but
Sorry.
just saying.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, Saylor's a native born, raised West Virginian, graduated from West Liberty University, and we are so grateful and proud to have him on our team. I'm sure he'll have some comments and maybe share some things towards the end of the meeting under announcements, but just wanted to note that Saylor is here with us tonight. Also going forward for meeting minute purposes, when you're commenting, please speak into the mic. It's difficult at times, and that includes members of the public. If you're speaking into the microphone, please speak into it, because sometimes it's difficult to hear for our folks that are taking the meeting minutes, and
Yes.
we appreciate all they do. So if you could help them with that, we would appreciate it.
Thank you for
All right,
reminding
and with that, we'll go into the case number on the screen, 308 Grandview Avenue. The applicant seeks to construct a detached garage or accessory structure in the side yard between Grandview and Charleston Avenues. If you look up on the screen here, you can see this is the outline of the property. This is the existing single-family dwelling. The proposed accessory structure is located here in this green space next to the house. There are several other proposed improvements with this project that included a patio between the principal residence and the accessory structure, as well as a side shed that's connected actually to the structure itself. And here is the site plan you can see. Again, this is the existing structure here. These two, the original house, the addition that was on the back, and then this is the proposed addition here with the accessory structure. And then in your packet, there's a more complete set of renderings of what the structure will look like inside and out, as well as elevation drawings. The 2-story structure will be approximately 24 feet high and encompass 972 square feet. The structure will include a loft space on the 2nd floor and be connected to a shed on the westerly side of the building, as previously mentioned. Upon review, the proposed improvements are not in compliance with the following sections of the zoning code listed in your packet. That includes section 133108A, numbers 4 and 9. As such, the applicant is seeking variance relief. More specifically, the applicant is requesting relief in order to locate the property or the accessory structure between the Grandview and Charleston Avenues, as well as a variance of approximately 6 feet for the proposed height of the structure. And that will conclude staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Any questions at this time? Do we have a representative for this case?
Hello, I'm Michael Kashan. I'm the property owner. Mike Harker is my contractor.
Do you want to just provide an
It's
overview?
essentially sort of designed as a structure for the future. Someday it will probably be a garage. I'm setting it up. I have a woodworking shop, a hobby shop, and my office space will be on the 2nd floor for my contracting business as a statistical consultant.
So in terms of your, just out of curiosity, because I mean the variance is for the height. the primary, there's not adequate space, or there are other reasons for
It's
citing your...
a classic four square, so it's got a wet basement, and the current house that we live in there, we just moved in there a year and a half ago. So it's a four square, has a wet basement, finished attic, which is already put to another use from my wife. I have my current workshop is down in Greenmont on Ray Alley, the rental home that I own. And so I've been doing this for a long time, and I have a lot of power tools, but I basically adhere to the rock band rules. It's nothing early in the morning, nothing after 9 o'clock, and I don't honestly use those very often. I'm mostly a hand tool worker.
Mhm.
So the other thing, if you go back to the picture of the house, so that lot slopes away from the house down toward the street, so there'll be a cutout up close to the house, so that the height of it's not going to be taller than the house. It's going to go up to about the second story windows there, because there'll be right adjacent to the house will be where a patio goes in. So I don't know if you have the plans in front of you, but the windows, basically about 3 or 4 feet of that side of the structure will be buried, so it's not going to look so tall when it's there.
What's the hardship?
Hardship is I don't understand the question.
So is one of the findings of fact, the variance will eliminate unnecessary hardship and prevent a reasonable use of the land because, what hardship are you seeking to?
I guess the height. I guess I don't really understand the question. I don't have any hardships. So I'm just trying to put a structure there that fits my needs.
Right. Well, go ahead, Mr. Reed.
I was going to say, if I may, just to elaborate on that, because of the height, the requirement of no higher than 18 feet, that's the hardship. Based on the plans that the applicant has put forward, that's in excess of that, so that would allow to have that loft space on the second floor, and that's why, and that's also including the pitch of the roof, so that would be the hardship. If we don't get the variance for the height requirement, then the plans would have to be altered, or we'd have to look, the applicant would have to look at another measure that may not include the loft space that they're requesting.
Right, and that speaks to the reason for my question. I mean, I asked you to characterize the use of the loft space, and you responded with, it's my contracting business. It's administrative.
It'll be my office.
It's
my
not really a
library.
workshop, but I was asking the question because I was trying to maybe get at whether you would have space in your primary,
No,
in the
not
primary
really.
structure for offices.
Not really. It's not as big as it looks.
So your current office is down in Greenmont?
My
Look-
current office is my dining room table in this
okay.
house.
And so we're only looking for a variance of 6 feet, is that right?
6 feet.
And what's the structure going to be used for, again?
The bottom will be a workshop. The top will be my office. I built chairs, spoons, quiet things.
And you said you don't intend to operate that equipment on unreasonable hours?
I never have. I've lived across the street from a church for 25 years and never had a problem.
Okay. Because in terms of a variance, one of the considerations are the adjacent property owners. And so is the use of this adjacent structure going to increase noise to neighbors,
One of
or?
those Saturday afternoon, but it'll be no louder than a lawnmower. And when I'm using the power tools, I keep the doors closed.
Okay. And are you already using that equipment in the house structure now?
Not in this structure, no.
Okay.
My workshop is in Greenmont right now, yeah.
There's no...
I've never had any complaints.
And then the loft part was going to be for what?
Office space, storage space.
On office in terms of like what kind of business?
Computer, I'm a statistical consultant.
Okay, so services.
I have a question specific to that. On the drawings that were submitted in the package, it references that loft space as recreational, for recreational purposes, whatever that may be. But now you're stating that it's a home office.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the home office necessitate another zoning issue? Or need permit specifically for that?
If the applicant was going to be running a home-based business out of their home, yeah, they would have to apply for that and go through that process, but I'm not aware of what the applicant's dealings are. But with regard to either the noise or the potential use of that upper space, there are already ordinances in place to protect the noise, so if things don't become too loud, we can enforce that, as well as there's provisions within the accessory structure code itself that states that, for instance, it can be used for any living quarters. So there's already protections in place on limiting what can be done in that space.
Yeah, I'll address that though. The recreational space was just the arbitrary term the architect used to put there. I have a contract with a company in North Carolina. I basically work 10 hours a week, so it's not an intense job, but I also design things that I'm going to build, and so it's like an office space of my own private space.
10 hours a week.
10 hours a week.
But he's not
is what
like
I
seeing
work.
clients in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not using that, you're not going to use that address as a principal office, a registered office
That
for the
people would
business.
come to? Never.
Yeah, correct. It's just you can work from
It's
home
my
at a home office
right,
without it being
like
your
You guys
business.
probably have offices in your own.
I mean, the structure's sightlines, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I mean, the existing structure, or not the existing, but the proposed structure, sightlines to the road and the neighboring road, that's extra 6 feet's not gonna change any of that.
No, not at all. Like it's south and to the west. There's a, we call it in the neighborhood. We call it Garage Mahal. It's a giant structure on Webster Street. So the gentleman has an antique car and parks his RV there. It's much taller than what I'm building, and it's right. I'm pretty tight with the neighbors up there. I don't foresee any problems.
Is there anything, can you speak to like how the property is currently situated that makes it more difficult to stay within the height requirements?
It's just that's how tall the structure is to get the second floor on it. And
Was any other structure design considered? I mean, so this variance would be for 6 feet, correct, over, and it's 18 feet as a limit, so that's a third. Was any,
I was not even aware that there was a height limit until
Oh.
I put the plans, so my architect did not inform me, and so no, we did not.
but I suspect that you'd have to incur some substantial costs to change plans at
That,
this point.
and I don't know how it would work. Like I said, I don't have space, the back space off the house there is just open glass sort of library. It has bookshelves and fireplace, and that's not a place for an office. And
There's a decent slope to that property, so you wouldn't be higher than your existing structure.
not even close.
Right,
That's
so,
like I
I mean,
say, my goal is to sink it as low as possible, but not so low that someday somebody can't use it for a garage.
So you may grade the slope.
It'll more likely
With
be a
regard to-
cutout up close to the house, and where the slope reaches the low point, it'll be, the bottom of the structure will be grade level toward the point.
Right.
Toward the point, yeah. And then toward the house, it'll be underground a little bit.
And unless there was a mountain behind you.
Yeah,
I'd
so
assume.
toward the house will be underground. I believe the end of the structure will come up, well, you see the post there. So I think that will be grade level. The side of the storage shed will be right there between those two posts. And that'll be grade level.
So what I'm hearing sounds something quite different than what these plans are actually showing, because the plans show a flat, which is obviously not, but a flat site, and that, but what you're talking about is trying to minimize the height of the structure from the street.
For my own personal taste, and it probably
Right.
slopes 3 feet, yeah. It probably slopes maybe 2.5 feet. Not, I don't know how to grade that, but it's a few feet.
Right.
So if you're measuring from the upper corner, you might still be within the variance, or within the normal code, like
Down
from
at
the
the
high,
bottom,
from the high
per-
side.
perhaps,
I guess, depends on where you're measuring grade from.
But the garage door that's attached is obviously going to be, I would expect there'll be a slight downslope to get into it. But again, I don't plan on parking any cars in my lifetime there.
Because the drive is going to be oriented, can you
Sure.
speak to the orientation
So
of the
this,
drive?
where this pickup truck is, there's 2 parking spots there where my wife and I usually park.
Yep.
And the front of the shop structure will be, this tree is no longer there. Will be right there. So same facing as the house.
So the long axis of the drive is perpendicular to the
Street.
street. So just so I'm clear, you are grading, it's not as if you're pouring a slab to work toward, you are gonna have to pour a slab, but you're
Yeah.
gonna grade first and then pour, right?
Absolutely. I'm having the walls are premium walls. It's a Pittsburgh company. You send them the blueprints. They pre-pour the concrete walls with metal studs, all the window cutouts. Bring it on a flatbed, set it up, and bolt it together in a few hours. And so it's all, that's why I went with an architect. It's not just somebody drew his plans up on a notebook.
Right.
So the ultimate height is not going to change, but the perceived height from the street will be less than what?
Yes.
'Cause it'll be
Yes,
graded
that is
and
true.
all.
Yes.
That is true. From the street, it will not be that tall. From the base of the structure, it will be that tall.
And I guess while you're up here, I'll ask you another question. In the findings of fact, there's always a question that says that the variance arises from special conditions or attributes which pertain to the property. So
Okay.
site boundaries,
Well, that could be, because if my footprint was limited,
yeah.
so there was only to go up. to
And
that.
it says, so special conditions which pertain to the property for which a variance is sought and which were not created by the person seeking the variance. In your answer is height requirements is a little high per city code. It has nothing to do with the property itself, why you need this variance. True or not true?
That is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so I just want to make that known, that
Yeah.
it's not a property issue.
I was not aware of these issues, so
Right.
no, we did not design it that way. I just
Right,
spent a lot
okay.
of time picking a structure that would work for myself.
Yeah.
Well, that's with respect to the height, right? But there's nowhere else to put this garage on that
There's
property.
nowhere else to put
Right.
this garage.
And if anything, the property helps by reducing some of that
Yes.
elevation by cutting into the hill.
So I think there's two issues. There's the location one, which we haven't really talked too much about because it is what it is. So that is a property issue.
Yeah.
Like the siting, it has to be there.
The sighting for me is you're definitely countenancing a hardship. Because
Right.
as you pointed out, there's nowhere else to site the accessory structure.
There's nowhere else.
Where, now, in terms of wanting to develop or construct it with the second story, that's where, in my view, you're kind of creating your own hardship.
Well, my wife and I
But
spent a lot of
at the same time, it's, what you're proposing is not an unreasonable development.
No, I don't think it's outside the bounds of reasonable, but I do think it's necessary, not just for this case, but for other ones, that we see this a lot where something that the property owner is proposing, what they're proposing it isn't a problem because of the property. So it's more of a precedent-setting issue. I'm fine with it because of the sensitivity, but I think we need to amend these findings of fact to say that indeed it is. But it is, the reason he needs the 6-foot variance is because of something he wants to do, but that's fine.
Well, it's also relevant that with the grading, the actual like impact of that additional height is mitigated by the
Right.
grading. So the intent of the zoning, of the height restriction is
Yeah.
it's less incongruous with the intent of that zoning ordinance, given that, yes, it's over the height, but the actual effect of it is
Yeah.
less than that.
I spent a lot of time trying to find a nice structure that blend in the neighborhood. It's going to complement the house perfectly, and so it's not going to be an eyesore. It's not going to be a noise nuisance.
Yeah, I appreciate the sensitivity.
Yeah.
So I'm more comfortable in terms of setting the precedent. The sighting is less of an issue
Yeah, that's not
than you requesting the 6 foot.
Yeah.
That's more problematic for me.
It's the 6 feet. I'll be able to stand up straight in the top.
Right. So, Mr. Plyler,
Yeah.
do you want to propose? Is one of the specific findings of fact with respect to granting this or entertaining granting this
I guess
problematic, and do you want to propose language?
yeah, I guess it sort of raises a bit of a question that, normally the way these things are answered is that the problem is this or whatever it is, this is the problem, or no, we're not going to have any issues with the neighbors. But here, it's kind of like being upfront with saying, is it, yes, what we're proposing does not meet the variance, and it's not because of the property. It's what we are doing. So is it okay to answer a finding of fact, yes, we're breaking the rule? I'm okay with that because, certain circumstances, it's okay.
If you wanted to amend that to it, you could.
From my viewpoint, I think the property owners and people submitting these things need to sort of be honest and say, yes, it is because of what we're doing, but is that okay? And then we can decide yes or no. I think in your case, it's really a semantics issue, but I think in your case, we're fine with it, but it's just a matter of saying, yes, it's what I am proposing, not the property. That's the issue.
Yeah, he's not being dishonest.
No, I'm not saying he is.
We're talking about like the definitions of a hardship in a legal context versus colloquially. So, I mean, yeah.
But he also did, extra work in making sure it blends into the aesthetic of the area and the house. So it's like when that's considered, then you might go over the
Yeah,
required.
honestly, if I lived out in the country, I'd be happy with a pole barn, but that's not how it was up there.
I think a lot of people in town would be too.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time looking for a house that had enough land, that was still in sort of the neighborhood we wanted to live in, that had enough space. And it was, it's a footprint on that lot right there that limits not going up, or having to go up. It makes me have to go up.
I think for that second finding of fact, the special conditions or attributes really only applies to the accessory structure siting, consideration of the siting. With regard to you requesting the 6 foot, those aren't really special, those aren't specific to either the property or what you're proposing. They're unique to your case because that's what you're proposing, but they're not a qualification of the property as as it currently exists.
Yeah, this is all news to me, but yeah.
So
Sounds like you're saying.
I'm just restating, I'm more comfortable setting the precedent with regard to citing than I am granting the 6 foot. Because while it's a reasonable, what you're proposing, it's a not unreasonable development of your property. I don't know if, I mean, I understand your need for office space, but why, you know, I don't know if you've made a compelling case to argue why you can't have that happen in the principal structure.
Well, I'm just saying, there's no space
His
in our
wife has
house
her
at
own
this point
workshop
for
as
an
well.
office.
She also
No,
has her
no,
own set.
no, I know.
There are tiny rooms in that house, and
Are we worried about setting a precedence for other, is that what the?
Oh, I think, are you worried if like, what if every neighbor in that neighborhood then just comes and says, let's build a loft on our garage? And how are we gonna say no to any of them?
And a variance is permanent.
Yeah.
Like conditional uses typically try
And-
to put the variance will remain where it is.
And the issue here is about, you know, if someone wants to build a basketball hoop somewhere or whatever, build something, and what it's merely what they are asking for is the problem. Has nothing to do with the property. That's what I think what we're wrestling with here, and it happens. I mean, a lot of these things come across our desk. I want to do a 2-story house. Well, why? Because I do. Well, then that's your particular issue, not the property dictating what it
Right.
needs to look like.
Which is why the height it's not related, it doesn't, there's a disconnect there between the height and special conditions that go along with the property.
So-
That's all I'm saying.
Another question. You're very sensitive to the height issue and thinking about, you know, reducing the height. Is there a possibility to rotate it 180 degrees, sink it down, and access it from the back, and then the height from the street is 1 story?
that's a long, this stretch along here, along Charleston Avenue, is just a long drainage ditch. So that would require a lot of groundwork and cutting into the drain to do that.
Okay.
I don't think any of my neighbors would appreciate a driveway coming off the point. I would not like that either. I mean, we basically tried to sneak it in there, make it as subtle as possible, and match the surroundings. And
I was going to make a comment to that. The height is still calculated based at grade. So even if it was removed or put down a little bit more, it's still going to be at grade of where the existing public right-of-way is.
grade of the street or grade of the actual structure?
Grade where the structure is.
Yep.
There's no way.
Yeah, okay.
But it won't be 26 feet off the street.
So would there be a proposal then on that second variance to differentiate, as you said, Mr. Benison, the fact that the location is because of the property and the way that it's configured, that is a hardship, but then the request for the additional height variance is born out of wanting to have that because that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you just very clearly explained, you know, how you're orienting the grade and the configuration is what's driving. This is our best proposal, given the characteristics of the lot. So you just
That becomes.
address that.
That's the hardship then.
That is part of the hardship,
Yeah.
which is not, that part of it is definitely not self-created. The only self-created is you just want to put a loft on your
office, yeah.
accessory structure, which is, again, that's not unreasonable. just in terms of setting precedents, that's the more problematic part
Yeah.
of the puzzle. That's it, in a nutshell.
Oh, I have no further questions.
Any other questions? Do we want to just retain the findings of the phrasing of the findings of fact as they are in the packet? I'm comfortable with that.
We should probably have a public hearing.
I don't,
We will, yes. We will.
you want to keep the findings of fact? So we're not going to note anything about.
I'm just asking that before we move to public hearing.
I think they
Just
need to
wanna
be
put that out
amended.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Again, we haven't the public hearing yet, but just as a matter, we could say something along the lines, the location of the accessory structure is needed, given the lot configuration, and the height request is due to the applicant's desired and proposed use of the structure. So that would differentiate between the property being the issue potentially and just the request of the additional 6 feet.
Let's go with that.
Okay.
And also, what the applicant intends in terms of grading and orientation of the accessory is going to work to ameliorate the visual, signature of the roof peak with respect to the maximum height allowed.
This is a little off topic maybe, but if we were to suggest anything, but you maybe are already paid for your architect in this, is to take the loft and just kind of offset it down and have a little stair step of your existing structure. You've got enough property there, you could just take that loft and just situate it like off to the side of the building.
You
But
mean
that
like
would-
extend it toward the point?
Yeah,
Then that covers the whole yard.
right, so
And
then,
that's,
Then you're at other issues of development density, and
yeah.
which would be back here.
And setback requirements. And the applicant meets those in the
Right.
current site plan, the applicant meets those setback requirements, so, for the accessory structure itself.
yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, this is what I
Yeah,
think.
picture is pretty tight.
Are we ready to move to the public hearing? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move to public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case, VAR 24-158, please do so now.
Hi, Mark Downs, 212 Kingwood Street. I've known Mike for a while. He's an extremely talented hobbyist and a great addition to our community, fantastic person. I appreciate the discussion. It causes you to think about, what you all, or friends and neighbors, are given to deal with ordinance. I would say, with respect to this specific case, that Mr. Kashan, Mike's gone through great. Obviously, you all recognize that, gone to great expense and care to do something that stays with respectful condition with the state of the neighborhood. So, and to that end, the 18 feet, I'm just learning about this, but as a real estate person, the 18 feet limitation is a bit problematic. I mean, he could have done something, he could have done a flat concrete block accessory structure at 18 feet and satisfied the same goal that he had. But again, he's gone through great care and expense to do something that maintains the historical character of the neighborhood, to do something that fits in and isn't an eyesore. So I think you all appreciated that, but I just wanted to state it very clearly that I think what he's done, and it's just not feasible as a builder to do something like he's doing with a usable second story and a pitched roof that meets the historic character of South Park and Grandview Avenue and the neighboring structures that would suit the same purpose, right? Everything you all talked about, totally agree with. But I just want to say that I think this is also, to your point, Mr. Plyler, I think this is a case of what we're talking about here is highest and best use. And I just think that kind of puts a pin on what you were, the point that you were pulling at, and I appreciate that. So I hope you all approve this. I think it's a fantastic project. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Rittenauer, 235 South Walnut Street. I have known Mike Cashan for a very long time. He has taught me a lot of things in his wood shop. He's got a great eye for, he's a craftsman. He really is. He would not do something that would hinder the flow of anything, in my opinion, as a craftsman. He would not. I do appreciate, I love attention to detail. I'm a microbiologist, so I understand attention to detail and all that stuff, but I guess it's just like a personal, like, and I didn't even know he was going to be here doing this. I got something else going on here in a little bit. But I just want, as a personal character to Mike Cashan, he wouldn't, like, he loves our community, and he wouldn't do anything that would hinder it, in my opinion. Thank you for letting me share.
Scott Frederick, 1065 Wayne Avenue. I haven't known Mike very long, but his craftsmanship is amazing, and I love the fact that he wants to enhance the neighborhood with the structure that's very well designed. One thing that I would like to suggest for moving forward in the future that you might want to consider is, I know that there's a restriction on the actual height of the accessory structure, but why not consider relative to the existing structure and relative to sight lines within the neighborhood? If you stand back and look at the structure as relative to his house, it's not going to be taller because it is settled in the ground a little bit. So that might be something that you could consider in the future to mitigate any rampant problems that might happen in the future. So, I mean, if you look at where the structure is proposed to be, it's still relatively 18 feet, in regards to where it's located. So I think that might be something that you could consider in the future to, resolve any other, problems about it being actually 20 feet high. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing. Do we want to address that second finding of fact? Well, Mr. Yeager, did you want to restate what you're proposing?
Yes, you want me
The
to give staff
addition-
recommendation as well as the variance? Okay. After review, staff had no objections to the variance relief requested. If the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the variance relief requested, then there was the one condition that was listed in your packet, which is basically a reassurance that it wouldn't be used as a separate dwelling unit, which already has enforceability built into the code. And regarding the finding of fact number 2, again, to restate, the location of the accessory structure is needed, given the configuration of the lot, and the height request is due to the applicant's proposed use of the structure. The accessory structure's orientation and location will mitigate the visual impacts
Yes.
to the site. Is that,
Yep. Especially mitigates the visual impact. I think that's an important point to address. Any further discussion? I'm going to make oh, go ahead.
So we are okay with someone creating nonconformity.
I mean, he's doing conformity, he's designing it to match the aesthetic of South Park, right? There's some conformity there.
It's not nonconformity.
I mean, you make it sound like
you
he's
just have to
building
ask, I'm just asking the
That
question.
is very good.
Where does
Because
this
there's-
18 feet restriction come from? Like, what's the origin of it?
the accessory structure part of the code?
Right.
gives requirements on setback requirements, building materials, and also includes this provision.
But to answer that directly, isn't it somewhat intended to alleviate or reduce the possibility of you creating a secondary, like a second?
Accessory structure that's out of proportion with the primary.
No, reducing the possibility that you're gonna have an apartment upstairs in your, because if it's 24 feet, that's pretty easy to do, but if it's 18 feet,
Right, but that's why those provisions are in there, and
Yeah.
that's what the recommendation of staff is. It's
Yeah.
approved, just reiterating what that requirement is.
Yeah.
And the applicant said here that that's not the intended use of the property.
and to your point about are we okay with creating nonconformity?
We approve signs all the time, but they're not conforming.
Right, yeah, and I think that's really a case-by-case situation. There is, in this, and we've talked about it a lot, it's non-conforming, but what we're asked to evaluate is what the intent is of the zoning, but also how they're trying to meet it best they can.
Right. Because yes, the applicant is asking for that 6 feet. However, in consultation with the architect, they're orienting the accessory structure, and they're citing it with respect to grade in a manner that's going to
Right.
reduce
Inset, yeah.
the visual signature, but also in a very real way, not only the visual nonconformity, but also the physical nonconformity.
Right. I think if the design proposal was a full height second story where you know, with an 8-foot ceiling all the way across, that
Right.
wasn't, you have inside of a gable, that'd be
Right.
a whole different issue, because there's no effort in that scenario made to conform or to reduce the sightlines. So I think it's a case by case. In this case, I think they're trying their best, doing
Or
a
if
great
you,
job.
or if you were gonna minimally grade, minimally terraform, and then just,
Yeah.
pour a slab willy-nilly almost on the existing ground surface, that for me would be much more problematic than what you're proposing.
My wife didn't like that either.
I'm sorry, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I have never known Mike and Sean to do anything willy-nilly. And that is 100% the truth.
So it is, I mean, we're allowing nonconformity, but what's proposed is a best faith effort to ameliorate
And
both
it's
visual and
adds to
physical.
self-work.
I think visual and physical.
allowing nonconformity within certain constraints. Like, it's not just saying, oh, okay, go ahead. So there's a certain, like, constraints that we've understood and are okay with, not just any unconformity.
We're stuck on one thing, like,
Yeah.
it's not gonna adversely affect adjacent property owners. It's more or less consistent with the intent of the zoning
Yeah.
ordinance, given the grading, which is gonna mitigate the height exception. There's an unnecessary hardship in the sense that he is an architect, he's expended money in this.
Well, that's not a hardship.
Well, it's not, I agree that we can't just allow people to like
Embarked
spend a
on the
bunch of money in
process.
this.
Yeah, that's-
Willingly.
Yeah,
At 6
that's
feet,
not-
it's half a story, and we're actually probably talking about 2 to 4 feet in net when we think about how it's set into the hillside, so. it's
Right,
like-
because if each one of these cases is unique, I think we'd have an even harder time if your site were level, because then there would be no opportunity to grade and work what you're proposing into the landscape in a way that complements what you're working with in a manner that's going to be visually and physically not, I mean, there's a degree of nonconformity, but you're doing your best to ameliorate that degree of nonconformity, physically and visually.
And that was one of my discussions with the architect, that my words were, I want it as deep as I can make it, so
Right.
that it's not as tall relative to the house.
I think it would be harder if it were a level property, because then you wouldn't have.
I think, and this is just where I'm coming from, I don't have an issue with the accessory structure. It's the height thing that I'm still kind of stuck on.
Right.
And, you know, the homeowner needs the garage built with a small loft. They want the garage built with a small loft. Like, there could be a garage without the loft. And I see this as a hardship that's being created rather than a hardship that
Because he's insisting on the
is, comes about because of the site.
Right.
And with variances being permanent, you know, if we grant every variance that comes to us, you know, at what point, you know, zoning becomes a hodgepodge.
Yep, no, I agree to that point too.
May I ask you something? Am I loud? I don't know the problem.
Well, we've kind of closed the public hearing. I'm sorry.
I mean, but we don't grant everything that comes across our desk. I mean, we are doing our due diligence and making sure he's, you know, crossed all his T's, dotted all his I's.
I'm sitting, I'm sitting here, any way I slice this, I don't, for the accessory structure, I'm fine. With the height,
I agree.
I cannot, I don't see the findings of fact supporting the height variance.
And the way, this is a sort of a procedural question. You can have that disagreement with the findings of fact, but that doesn't, just because you have that disagreement, doesn't necessarily mean that it fails, correct?
The
Because it's
finding-
really-
the findings of fact are ours.
Right.
To make. We can make up brand new.
As
findings of
amended by,
fact if we
correct,
want.
Mr.
We don't have to accept any of the findings of fact.
Well, no, that's not what I'm asking. The question that I'm asking is, do all of us have to agree 100%
A
unanimously?
majority vote's required on the findings of fact
Yeah.
and the grant, and the request for the
Yeah.
variance.
Yeah, we don't have dissenting opinions. We gotta agree on.
It's the majority.
findings
It's the
of fact
majority.
And conclusions of law.
So it's the majority that matters.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not
Right.
discounting.
Right, and
I think we should
I'm-
vote on it.
Yeah.
I'm cool dissenting, but could we separate out the two parts of the variance? Do just one vote for the accessory structure for the record, and one for the height?
Yeah, that's what the majority wants to do.
Is that
yes.
all right?
So you'd still have to vote on the findings of fact and then break out each individual, but whatever the numbers are, 4 and number 9, you could do that.
As long as
and
he's
have
saying
votes.
he agrees with the accessory structure, just not on
So-
the variance request of the,
Yes.
so,
But we have to start with the findings of fact first.
All right, so I move to accept the findings of fact. We want to mention that we've added language to the second finding of fact as provided by Mr. Yeager, which will be entered into the record. Do we have a second?
1 second.
So we have a motion to accept the findings of fact.
And are we, point of clarification or whatever, is this accepting the findings of fact with respect to the accessory structure, or are we findings of fact with the respect to the height? Because if we don't accept the findings of fact, then we have to.
Well, I
Procedurally,
mean,
how should we do
ca-
this?
In this
the
instance.
findings of fact apply both to the citing with respect to the streets, but also
So I think.
the height request.
I think with the way that the findings of fact are worded now and the amendment that's probably coming, right, that we discussed on number 2, I think it gets to your point of separating those and acknowledging both. And then when you go to vote, if you separate out each variance request, that would suffice.
But so I'd be
Yeah,
able
one,
to-
One set of findings of fact, but you're voting individually on specific requests.
Okay, but so with the separating out in the second one or whatever, I would be able to cite that as part of the dissent.
Yes,
Okay,
for sure.
Yep.
okay.
But the findings of fact are for the case considered as a whole.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so we have a motion to accept the findings of fact for case VAR 24-158. We have a second. How do we vote? Miss, go ahead. We'll just-
Yay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yay, so we've accepted the findings of fact. We're going to do, well,
It would be a motion on number 4, on corner lots, accessory structure should not be located between any portion of the principal structure. That would be your first vote.
right. So we're going to make a motion to grant the variance with regard to
133108A4.
A4.
Right.
And
Just
that
that.
is with respect to citing of the accessory structure.
I think the findings of fact that you just moved on, that's sufficient. That
Okay.
now you're just saying, do we grant that specific request? Can it be located between the two streets? That's what the motion would be.
So this first motion concerns granting a variance with respect to citing your accessory structure between the principal streets
Right.
that border your property. We have the motion. Do we have a,
I didn't hear who motion.
I just made that motion.
Okay, Chris, okay.
And then we're looking for a
I
second.
will second that.
Okay. We have a motion to grant the variance with respect to citing the accessory structure between the principal streets. We have a second. How do we vote on that particular motion? Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
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 And then, would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, there has to be a motion made on the second.
No, yeah, but would you like to make that motion?
No? You have someone else on? I'm dissenting.
Okay. All right, so
I'll move to grant a variance to section 133108A9. Accessory structures shall not exceed 18 feet in height.
I'll second that motion.
and we
With a
want
Specific
to,
request of 6 foot.
yeah,
with the specific-
well, in the meeting packet, it's 6 foot and
Yes.
2 3/8
Okay.
inches.
I second that motion for the variance
Has
of
to
6
be-
feet and 2 3/8 inches.
It's referenced
make
in the
sure
packet,
yes,
so
we'll make
let's
sure
just
it's
reference that specific 6 feet and 2 3/8 inches. So we have a motion, and
I'll second
we have a
that motion.
second.
Gabe, you said.
Yep.
Oh, did I agree?
And then how do we vote on this second motion with respect to granting the height request variance? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye. So it's okay.
So we have 4 ayes and 1 nay.
And I dissent on the basis of the finding of fact for the hardship not covering the height sufficiently.
Can you, Mr. Schemberg, can you say that one again more?
I dissent on the basis of I don't find a hardship for the height.
Thank you, sir.
Right. All right, so we have granted your variance. We had two separate motions, but we covered all the bases there. You will receive written notification from planning. It's typically 7 to 10 business days. Just keep in mind any work that our decision can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County in a 30-day appeals window. And any work that you undertake during that 30-day appeals window, you do at your sole financial risk. Thank you very much for coming down this evening, and have a good evening. All right. Next case, conditional use 24-162, William Rittenauer, 132 Pleasant Street, request by Mr. Rittenauer for conditional use approval for restaurant private club use at 132 Pleasant Street as required by section 1335.05 of the city's planning zoning code regarding permitted land uses, city tax district 11 in the 3rd ward, tax map 28A, parcel 37 in the B4 general business district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant seeks conditional approval to operate a restaurant private club use at the above referenced address. Here's a map of the location on the right-hand side, and this is a Google Street View, which is obviously old when they were redoing Pleasant Street and before the applicant's establishment was there, but that's the image of the building and location of the proposed restaurant private club. While Chestnut Brew Works has been operating a tasting room with limited food items at 445 Brockway Avenue for more than 8 years, the Beer Hall and Bistro has a more expansive menu. A copy of the menu was provided in the packet, as well as a floor plan showing the capacity for seating, which according to the code requires at least 50 seats, and this clearly meets that at least here. And then while a restaurant private club use requires conditional use approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals in a B4 district, such uses must also follow Section 133106 of the supplemental regulations, and you can see those, Section 18, as well as Section 27C, 27F. Please, and then obviously in your packet, like I referenced before, is the application and floor plan for the proposed establishment. That will conclude staff's report.
One question before we begin. You provided us with the definition of what a restaurant was, and I do appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
But we are to disregard the language that says where food sales constitute more than 60% of the gross sales receipts. Is that correct?
Yes, in the supplemental regulations, it's even more specific with respect to the B4 to the 60/40. That has been suspended.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. And yes.
Do we have a representative to speak on behalf of this case?
Yes, you do. Thank you for inviting me. My name is William Rittenauer, 235 South Walnut Street. One thing I'm going to state before I say anything else is I see a lot of attention to detail here, and I love it, like I said about I'm a microbiologist. I am Dr. Rittenauer. I am not Mr. Rittenauer. I'm Dr. Rittenauer. So when you address me, if you could please address me as Dr. Rittenauer, I'd appreciate it. I don't get to play that card very often. So if I could play it here in front of you guys, I'd love it. Dr. Deshawn, maybe Dr. Deshawn, but he's also a doctor of statistics. I do not get to play that. I try to play that card with my kids, and they tell me I'm not a real doctor, and they're right. So anyway.
Thank you, Dr. Rittenauer.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to answer
Would
any.
you play one on public access TV?
I would love to, especially if I get paid for it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have. I will say that I would love nothing more than to sell as much of my own beer out of that location as possible. I do not want to be serving liquor out of there. I really don't want to. I do not want to. Like me personally, I don't want to do it. It would be a better business decision, which is why I'm seeking to do it. Because what it does is it makes us more attractive, or at least it keeps the options open. You know, there's a lot of people out there who want to go to places, and you know, if I don't have liquor, if Chestnut, not me personally, but if Chestnut Beer Hall doesn't have liquor, and places like Short Story does, then they're going to go to Short Story. And that causes me problems. You know, I'm also, I mean, something that wasn't brought up in the report is that that location had served liquor for how many decades? Up until Black Bear closed in 2020. So, I would also state openly for the record, and there's people in this room that understand that the disease of alcoholism has been in my family and has caused my family a lot of problems, and I do not take that lightly. I would say, you know, and I teach my staff, and we, to the best of our ability, promote responsible alcohol consumption. And we would continue to do that whether we're serving beer and wine, and we throw liquor onto it. The plan is a very limited liquor menu, probably 5 drinks. You know, you get your gin drink, you know, probably like a mule type drink, and then a rum drink, and then, you know, this drink and that drink, probably 5 signature drinks, and then some high level bourbons. There will be no shots. There will be no shots served there. Like I said, the signature drinks, high level bourbons will be poured either neat or with ice, depending on what the person wants. But there will be no shots. No one's quick downing any liquor, unless they decide to do it. I pour them, you know, a $20, you know, high-end bourbon. You know, if they want to suck that thing down as fast as I mean, that's their business. You know, I would suggest that they savor it because they just paid $20 for it. But whatever, you know. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
So this is just to be pedantic, but
Yes. You strike me as a pedantic person.
all right. Well,
Am I correct in yeah. I love it.
Doctor, your diagnosis is correct.
Yeah.
So,
Actually, you guys were all talking about nonconformity earlier, and look at me. I'm a total nonconformist, but I appreciate that you guys have to be conformists, or
So-
at least a lot of the time. Anyway.
so just to clarify for
Yeah.
the record, Dr. Rittenauer.
Yes, thank you.
You have a place within this establishment where food and beverages are prepared.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that correct?
Yeah, big kitchen, yes, and that menu that you saw is limited.
Yeah.
We would like to expand. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Cool. And you serve food there, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And food is consumed primarily within the principal building, is that correct?
That is, yes.
All right,
yeah.
you're a restaurant.
I would agree.
So the only other question I would have, congestion in the streets will not be increased. Your establishment is part of POTA, correct?
It is.
So you anticipate that traffic will remain the same?
Foot traffic?
Yes.
Yeah, and hopefully it goes up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like safely and responsibly.
Right.
You know, but like to see people walking the streets and enjoying themselves and responsibly and spending their money in downtown, I think is what we all want, right?
You also have a
Is
parking
people to spend
garage.
money in downtown.
You also have
There's
a
a
parking
garage
garage,
right
right, in neighboring. You
I'm
have a
sorry.
parking garage neighboring your building, so it's
Yes.
very well
Yes, yes,
situated.
yes, yes. And we try to encourage people to walk as much as possible or take Uber.
With the addition of liquor, you're not seeking to add seats to
No.
increase your capacity,
No.
your occupancy. So none of that will change.
We would just like customers to know that they have more options. And I will say, I think there are people in this room that can confirm that we offer as many non-alcoholic options as we possibly can. Like that includes non-alcoholic beers of all different flavors. That includes kombuchas. That includes, you know, seltzer waters. That includes iced teas. That includes like the kitchen guy Ben makes this thing called a aqua fresco, which is really good. So we're big fans of non-alcoholic drinks, but we're also big fans of alcohol. We're big fans of anything people want to spend money on. So, yeah.
I mean, Halleck's my favorite beer. I half thought about recusing myself.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Oh, and this is part character, but also part shameless promotion, to show that like we are all about like responsible family fun. We're hosting an event this Saturday called Let's Get Nuts, and it's I came up with that name. I'm proud of it. But it's a benefit. It's a fundraiser for the Mountaineer Spay and Neuter Assistance Program to help control our pet population. It's called Let's Get Nuts. I like it. But this is the kind of stuff we like doing, is helping our community and having fun doing it. That's what Chestnut's all about, so.
Show it to the folks at home, Doctor.
I would love to. Let's get nuts. Is there any other question? You have a question?
I do.
Yes, please.
And
I love questions.
I suspect I know what the answer is, but in these types of conditional uses, it's hung up on 50 seats,
Okay.
and which is different than occupancy. It's
Okay, understood.
two different numbers.
Understood.
And it's also very specific that seats at a bar don't count.
Okay, understood.
So
Understood.
here, but what it does say is that counters are fine. In order to achieve the 50,
Okay.
you are using what is labeled
Okay,
as a
cool.
bar.
Okay.
On this drawing, it says bar.
As long as they can also serve, can be food, if food can be served at the counter, that would be permissible, if it's not just for drinks.
But that's not a bar on that side.
A bar is a
really.
counter, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Well,
Oh, yeah, okay.
I understand,
Okay, yeah.
but on the
But-
drawing, it says bar, and it
Understood.
specifically says.
Well, let's see, we might be able to count 50 without the bar. So should we do that? Would that alleviate your concerns?
It's, without any of the bars, it's like 48.
Oh, wow, okay.
But no.
Well, but you
here's
know
what-
what, we don't,
Wait. May I interject?
no, I don't think you're allowed to, Scott.
No,
And trust me, we don't want to.
I'll address that.
It's just,
But physically, that is, it's constructed as a bar, but there's no bar service at that part of the bar.
but it
One,
really
two,
states
three,
on the
four,
drawing.
five, 6, that's 24 right there. We have, Mark and I just counted, we were just at, we were having a political event down there, and Mark and I went through and counted, and I'm pretty sure there's 50 seats in there, minus the bar, but, because we counted a total of 95. So if we count a total of 95 seats and we subtract the 15 that are at the bar, that leaves 80. That's my calculation.
Not including, yeah, right, not including the seats immediately adjacent to the bar, you're looking at, it's like 44, 46.
So wait, these high tops don't count?
No, I'm counting this.
Oh, yeah, they count, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we just subtract these off, we still have plenty more than 50.
Correct.
It looks, it looks to be,
And that's not including the bench seats around, it's not really a well, but I'm not even factoring the bench seats surrounding the table.
I mean, we have
toward the front.
24 here, and we have, I believe, 20, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, times 4, that's 20, 24, that's 44. And then we do set up, there's a closet here, we have a pew here, made out of chestnut, it's actually a very impressive pew.
And here.
And then we have 2 tables there, and they're not drawn they're shown on this because it's the stage, but when we're not staging anything, there's people who can sit there.
Would it be easier just to argue that we remove the word bar from the drawing?
Exactly.
Okay.
I say let's remove the word bar from the drawing, that makes sense.
And
I
it's
think-
just because the code is very clear, bars don't count. This labels it as a bar, so you,
But,
Yeah,
yeah,
but it's,
so just remove the
but
label
that
on the drawing.
countertop is amenable to both.
It says bar, but it looks like it's been erased. Did you look at it?
I did see that on second look.
and I can verify I've eaten a pizza sitting there, so it's,
I think this is all true, but it's based on what's.
Attention to
Data,
detail.
data.
I appreciate that. I respect it. I really do.
Well, we can, in the findings of fact, we can, if you want to put verbiage.
Yeah.
Just pointing out that that bar countertop is amenable to both food service
Correct.
and.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot of food there's a lot of food eaten at that bar every night, I promise you that.
Counter.
Counter. Which, yeah. Counter.
we're good. And you've demonstrated too, I mean, you've got your menu, but I think you.
I do, and I would like to say something about that menu.
This is just a sample menu, I
This,
think.
well, it is, we're trying,
Because you-
let me share with you the problem that we've encountered since we have opened in February is finding kitchen help. And that is an industry-wide problem, that's not a Chestnut-specific problem. We have a sandwich menu ready to go, as soon as we can find the people to make it and serve it. Which
My son
is,
needs a job, so.
But yeah, we've had a lot of weekly food sandwich specials that have been very successful. People are excited to see, like always, and we're excited to serve them to them always as soon as we can staff the place to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other
questions?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very
Dr.
much.
Ritenour.
All right.
Public hearing.
Yes. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything, Mr. Yeager. We're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to case CON 24-162, now is your chance to do so.
Hello again. Mark Downs, 212 Kingwood Street. I'm here to speak in support of Dr. Ritenour and Chestnut Beer Hall.
Thanks, Mr. Downs.
Love you, Bill. Bill has invested a lot of time, money, and fortune in reactivating a space that was very important in this community, and it was very felt when Black Bear Burritos left downtown Morgantown. What he's done is very appreciated by the downtown community, and you all know I've been here several times. I'm the president of Main Street Morgantown, and we've been working very hard on reactivating vacant spaces, and this was a very high priority for us. So when Bill stepped up and leaned into our community and bet on us here, it was a big deal, right? He bet on all of us. So I think that you all, obviously you're going to look at this on its facts, but I think he's very clearly demonstrated that he meets the qualifications of a restaurant, that his intentions are good, and look forward to your decision-making process playing out. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Scott Frederick, 1065 Wayne Avenue. Dr. Ritenour is a very fine businessman, and he took an amazing leap of faith to move his establishment into what was the vacant Black Bear space. I had a little bit of concern about just being a beer hall because a lot of people like to go out and have cocktails. And in fact, I've invited many people to go down there and join me. And they're like, oh, well, they just serve beer. So let's even the playing field for him and allow him to serve, cocktails. And as the person who did a lot of work in that space, 99 people could walk in that door and have a seat. There are 99 places for seats in that building as it exists right now. So if you remove the counter, which was mislabeled as bar, you still have 85 people that can sit. So it definitely meets a restaurant. The kitchen is well equipped. In fact, Mark and I had a chance to be guest cooks in there one time, and it's a very, very nice kitchen, and the potential to be an even larger restaurant than what it is now, which it is, and that's exciting. And being able to serve cocktails to the people who enjoy them, I think it will expand his business base and allow him to make, a lot more accommodations for people to come in and enjoy food and drink, and make our downtown even more vibrant than it is. So that's what we're hoping for. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. What else? Just a moment.
Sorry, knee replacement. My name is Al Bonner. I live at 225 Morris Street. I've known Bill for probably 10 years. And one thing you say about Bill is he cares about people, he cares about the community. And as far as promoting responsible drinking, Bill's had his problems. He knows people, and I have no doubt that he will run a place that is very respectable. And like he said, he offers many non-alcoholic beverages over there, and is always in tune to the community and wanting to help people. And I'm here in support. I don't think I could add anything to what Dr. Bill said over there, but I appreciate y'all listening to him, and I hope that you would give him the opportunity for a level playing field downtown, because there's a lot of places down here now, and to level it up for him would be great. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing.
Staff recommendation, after review, staff had no additions, corrections, or modifications to the findings of fact as presented. If the BZA were to approve the applicant's request for conditional approval to operate the restaurant private club use, there were 3 conditions that were listed in your packet. And then based on the conversation we just had regarding condition number 2, where it says staff will verify that the floor plan provided in accordance with section 13310627F of the city's planning and zoning code regarding the seating capacity requirement is met. We also would want to have that floor plan amended in terms of the language that's used to describe the bar area as a area that is amenable to food service.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That will conclude staff's report. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I do have one sort of follow-up question. In the public comment, several of you mentioned something along the lines of leveling the playing field downtown or around there. So my question is about that, really. Does the addition, or do you feel that the addition of the liquor makes this a more financially viable business in the long term?
I think this also I think this refers to like the short story having liquor and also all the
Yeah,
bars and
yeah.
Which he mentioned.
yeah.
Yeah, it all comes down to options, right?
Sure.
And I want, as the proprietor of the business, I want people to choose us, right?
Sure.
I want them to choose the beer hall. Now, and I want them to bring as many people as possible, right? That's, be nice. So if you have a group of, say, 5 people, and they're like, hey, where should we go? And they're like, well, let's go to Chestnut. And they're like, no, I can't get liquor drinks there. Let's go to somewhere else. Okay. I would really like that to not happen.
So I think the answer to that question is yes.
Yeah, it's just,
does.
yeah, and especially since we have the facility to do so.
Sure.
Here at this location. Like, I would understand if the location was not suited for liquor, I would understand that and I wouldn't be here asking for it. But I do feel that location is suited for liquor to be served, especially in the very, like I said, like personally, I probably do better to serve as much of our own beer as possible, So, but just the options. We want people to feel welcome and options, whether they want non-alcoholic drinks or they want, a 20-year-old bourbon. I want them to have options. Thank you.
I'd also, with respect to the comment you just made,
Yes.
You are in the POTA,
Yes.
the newly instituted POTA,
Yes.
and the service of what you're asking for is not inconsistent with the character of the POTA district as it's.
I don't think so.
It's a good fit.
That is something new I'll have to do some investigating on, is serving liquor drinks in POTA cups. I'm not familiar with that, so that's something. I mean, I got a lot of learning to do. I've never served liquor before. But if I've demonstrated anything, it's that I can learn stuff and do it. So. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Any other questions?
no, I think Dr. Rittner has demonstrated that he is a restaurant. I know I brought up the last time something came up, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich standard. And this more than exceeds that. So statutorily, yes, it is a restaurant. This is maybe a bit of a obiter. Well, this is just me saying something in passing, but if we don't have the capacity to deny things like this, could maybe code should be changed to reflect, whatchamacallit, to make this more of an administrative matter. That's just my opinion, but it's not germane to the proceedings.
Well, but the applicant still needs to demonstrate that the bar may have changed, but the applicant still needs to demonstrate that the, what's being proposed meets the definitionally. Some effort has to be made to demonstrate.
Right.
Hey, we are going to be able to operate as a restaurant.
Well, in the absence of that adjudicative criteria, but that's a matter, I
And
think.
the criteria-
But that's outside the scope of this discussion. I just
Right.
am saying that for the record, that the applicant meets the standard, and it is a very good space for the community.
And it's historically, what you're proposing is, it's similar with respect to operating as a restaurant to what went before you. And what you're proposing is an extension, an expansion, we hope, or you hope, of what went before you. So you've demonstrated that, okay, I'm in the same, what the business before was operating in this manner and had, I mean, the kitchen is there. So that allows
I
you.
invest a lot of money
Right,
into the employees that work the kitchen, so it is a real kitchen.
right. Yep.
Well, I move that we accept the findings of fact as stated.
Seconded.
So we have a motion to accept the findings of fact for VAR 24-162. We have a second. How do we vote? Do we vote to accept the findings of fact?
Aye.
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 And I do as well. We've accepted the findings of fact.
And I make a motion that we grant the conditional use 24-162,
Subject to the
subject to the conditions given by
referenced on
planning.
page 34.
And the
And
modification that was discussed.
with the modification with respect to the second condition, the modified floor, or the amended floor plan. Just to illustrate that a certain area within the business, or all areas within the business, are amenable to both food service and beverage service.
Yes, the parts that are accessible to customers, yes.
And do you need that before the written, should we grant the variance, do you need that before
Just, yeah,
communication?
I would say as amended. If you're going to make the recommendation to approve as amended, you can make that as part of your motion.
I only have one more question, and for Dr. Rittenauer. Can families come in there with their kids? Is this like an 18-year-old?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We love families with kids, because I have 3 kids of my own, and I love bringing them there on Sundays and letting someone else cook and clean up after them, other than me, because I do it the other 6 days of the week. So, yes, of course, like, at a certain time, we ask that, maybe, but even like, we do Wednesday night, so like today, this was a very busy day. We had, I don't know, you all know Evan Williams and Danielle Trumbull, I'm sure. They had a nice event at the beer hall for Steve Williams, who is an impressive candidate. Chestnut Brewworks does not endorse any political candidate ever and never will. Unless it's Al Bonner for city council, then we will. We've done that before, Al, we would do it again. But other than that, we don't. But we're grateful to have space for them to, share what they thought was important. But then after that meeting, then we have, we're showing Hubie Halloween with Adam Sandler for families to like get in the season and stuff. And of course, anyone under the age of 21 is not allowed to sit at the counter, which is what we're going to call it now. They sit at the high tops to watch that is the request that we have. Yes, we want families to feel welcome there, and that's a precedent that Black Bear set that we just try to copy. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. All right, so again, we do have a motion, and can we have a restate on the second?
I'll second the
Just-
motion.
Just take for the record. So, Mr. Yeager, we do have a motion by Mr.
For the conditional use?
For the conditional use. Seconded by Mr. DeWitt.
Okay.
How do we vote?
Aye.
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 So, Mr. Rittenhour, we've granted your request for your conditional use. You're welcome. Keep in mind, this decision can be appealed in the Circuit Court of Montague County. You will receive written notification, but keep in mind, during that 30-day appeal window, any work that you undertake with respect to your application, you do at your sole financial risk.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming down this evening. All right, last case, I think. We have one more case. We have VAR 24-XYZ.
Yes.
Interesting.
Placeholder.
For Peak Health. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
We just did it.
Let us.
Work.
Referenced as 1085 Van Boris Road, request by Vision Custom Signs on behalf of Peak Health for variance relief from Article 1331.08 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code regarding conditions for permitted monument signage, City Tax District 15, 7th Ward, Tax Map 6, Parcel 69 in the B2 Service Business District.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
The applicant seeks to install a new two-sided and internally illuminated monument sign at 1085 Van Boris Road. Here's the location of the subject site. To the south is Applebee's. Across the street is the existing parking lot and getting into the hospital complex there. The new sign will be 16 feet tall and encompass approximately 161.66 square feet, and that is an amendment from what is in your packet and will be adjusted in the staff report accordingly. You can see on the picture on the left, on the top upper left is what the existing sign is as a pylon sign, and then what's below is proposed as the new monument sign that's secured and structurally internally into the, like there's a secured in the middle of the structure there. Again, oh, go ahead.
That sure is a monument sign, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little, it's yes. And then based on all the conditions with regard to the monument sign and its location, the lighting and interior standards that are all referenced in your packet, the applicant is requesting the following: a variance relief in the amount of 10 feet for the height of the proposed monument side, a variance in the amount of 129.65 square feet, which is a change in your staff report and in your packet for the maximum sign area permitted, and variance from having two ground signs on the same parcel that are within 100 feet of each other. And just to clarify that, the proposed signage, it obviously fronts is along the right-of-way of Van Boris Road. There was an existing directory sign, which is shown here on the lower right-hand corner, that was existing with the building, but as the use and occupancy has changed, that was replaced with the same height, same type, same, occupying the same space, a sign, a small ground monument sign. So that's why that third variance is being requested, because they are approximately 50 foot between each other. But obviously, they serve different purposes now and before, when the building was occupied by multiple tenants.
So is their building only now?
Correct. And that will conclude staff report.
Any questions before we invite?
I mean, if we have to make some of your questions, if there are lots of questions to this one.
All right. Do we have a representative for this case? VR 24-XYZ.
Steve Brock with Vision Custom Signs, here to represent Peak and WVU Medicine. And basically what we're asking, you can see the upper sign's a little antiquated. It went in 2008. I know that because I put it in. It has the old fluorescent lighting in it. There's parts of it that has deteriorated over the years. And to achieve Peak's new look, there was no way to adapt the current structure to make it look like what they wanted.
Is that whole thing backlit?
The lighting on it is the logo next to the P in Peak. Those are individual letters, channel letters. The letters light.
So the white won't be lit up at night?
No.
Okay.
Actually, the amount of light from the old sign to the new sign will be about half as much.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, if you look, all those white panels lit up.
I was really worried
on
that
the
it
old
would be a
sign.
big white blob of light.
No.
I swear, really.
No, and it's going to be purple letters, so it's going to be about half lighting of what like a white letter would be. It'll be real classy and.
On page 56 of your packet, it has a really good example of what it looks like.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. Thanks, Ricky.
Yeah.
So with all these sign variances we're getting, I don't know if there's anything done in the code yet to kind of discuss luminance, but we haven't really gotten anything to.
We have not, the sign ordinance does need to be revised, but it does not specify
Yeah,
that.
this is much better than I anticipated.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how big was the old one again?
It was very similar to that.
It fit in the
It
picture.
was 16 foot tall.
The new one extends
It
outside
does,
the picture.
well, the
Well,
old one, it
that's
does
just a
look
rendering.
shorter. Just based on,
Why so big?
Oh. yeah, that's, I'm
It's a big
wondering.
building.
Yeah. But I mean, like, there's a lot of, I'm just from a design perspective.
There's
it's just,
a wall that we're fighting on one side,
A
yeah.
retaining wall?
a retaining wall.
But could it not have fit within the footprint of the original, or of the sign structure? Because that other sign's very big too. It just wasn't holding.
It does fit within it. The other sign was
May even be
149 inches
slightly
wide.
smaller. It's the height.
This, I guess the
very-
height.
It is very tall.
Yeah.
It's no taller than what the other one was.
Is it, okay, I'm just looking at
Well,
comparison.
if
of
you
the
look,
picture.
if you look at
Well, I
the,
understand, but if you look, it's just a rendering, and then that's not the scale.
oh, it's not? Okay, because if you, I mean, it looks as if it's, in terms of the new one, the new peak sign, it's well above the line of, it's not the scale. All right.
Okay, that
Could
helps.
you
So the-
reiterate that point? The existing sign is the same,
16 feet,
and then one you're wanting to do is 16 feet?
yes.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, that picture does throw me off a lot. I was having a problem with that. I was like, that is a monolith sign.
That's an art department
So
issue.
there
It's
was
kind
a-
of hard to scale, you know.
Easter Island.
Exactly.
There was a point made in the findings of fact that it was non-conforming before, and what you're proposing is to maintain the same level of non-conformity.
Degree of nonconformity.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's a good point.
And there's illumination, but you just spoke to, like, in terms of light output.
It's this
It's-
color. I like
it's
that
very,
much.
very limited to what is in place.
It's very pleasant. It doesn't- It's not going to burn.
So-
my eyes.
You're looking 800 watts down to 60 watts probably.
Oh, that's
Wow.
Could we, I'm always a stickler for that kind of information. If you know that, there's a thing in here that says, it asks, finding of fact, does this, it will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare? No, because we're at 60 watts, it was at 100 and whatever.
We're reducing.
Not everybody is real
reducing it.
versed in electrical. And
No,
you try not to get too technical.
No, I understand that, but that's how we make,
But luminance would be the better value because just because it's wattage doesn't
Well,
necessarily correlate with
I-
fluorescence and LEDs.
whatever
LEDs
the
are-
terminology is, it would make sense if you know that specific information. It was up here, lighting level was high, and we're gonna do lower.
Lumens is what the sign actually puts off with light. Wattage is what it takes to power the lighting source.
So
fluorescence take more
lumens
power.
is the visual impact.
Yeah, that's what I want the code to kind of
And,
suddenly.
and with, like I say, with the colors and the purple, you're gonna be low lumens.
It's going to be pretty. It was-
Softer light.
So again, I want to ask again because I may be confused. Is it going to be within the existing footprint, or like you said, well, I see there in that brick structure. Is it going to kind of cover that exact same size?
Everything's coming down,
Okay.
the concrete's removed.
But it's going to be within the
Pole
same
pole goes right back to the center.
three-dimensional footprint that it represents now?
Absolutely.
Okay, then I don't see any changes that,
Yeah.
I just see it being an improvement.
This is really
I mean, the
straightforward.
height is still
Yeah.
significant.
I didn't have a chance to drive the corridor. Mr., can you speak to, like, for other monument signs, is this comparable?
I mean.
Because I can't think of other,
We just did one like across the street, like
Yeah.
a month or two ago.
right.
And Compass
That one
Health,
was quite a bit, yeah, that's what I mean. I'm just wondering if there are other monument signs in Van Voorhees corridor
A few.
that are comparable.
By the cellular one, or whatever, is it cellular one, or AT&T, they've got one.
Yeah.
You got that
Were that-
chiropractor that's kind of.
It's actually.
Does Applebee's have
It's taller,
one?
yeah, that's right, it's taller, right?
Does Applebee's or the AT, I'm trying to think of the other businesses over there.
Applebee's has one in the corner of the park.
Or the AT&T store, maybe?
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, along this corridor, that's not out of character.
All
Right.
right,
Really?
then. All right.
I was worried when I saw it that big, like compared to.
Because 16
but
feet is
now I
16
feel
Yeah,
better now.
if you look at the measurements, I mean, it's spot on. We wouldn't try to make it bigger.
Okay, cool.
We've been down that road.
All right.
Any other questions? All good?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, we're going to go ahead and open public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case? Again, it's VAR 24-XYZ. Now is your opportunity to do so. Seeing no one, public hearing. Mr. Yeager.
As is customary with sign variance petitions, no recommendation is submitted by staff concerning whether the variance should be granted. And there were no modifications or comments proposed for the findings of facts as presented.
Seems very straightforward.
Do we have a motion to accept or any further discussion? It is very straight.
I do have one, this is a very small thing, at the very, on page 47, under that, up in the staff report under request and location, it has in here that it's requesting variance relief from 133108, and it's actually 1369.
Thank you for that. That's a typo.
That's good. I motion to approve this, yeah.
So we're moving to accept the findings of fact.
But, yeah, we need a motion to accept findings of fact first.
Yes.
I move to accept the findings of fact.
I second that.
So we have a motion to accept findings of fact for VAR 24-XYZ, seconded by Mr. Schumacher. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion to grant? Oop, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's good.
Do we have all ayes? I move to grant the requested variance for VAR 24-XYZ for Peak Health.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to grant the variance, seconded by Mr. Plyler. How do we vote?
Aye.
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 All ayes. We have granted your variance request for your case. Written notification will be sent by planning, 7 to 10 business days. And keep in mind, any decisions rendered by this board are subject to, or can be appealed by the Circuit Court of Montague County in a 30-day appeals window, and any work that you or your colleagues undertake during that appeals period, you do at your sole financial risk.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming down this evening. That was the last case. Do we have announcements from staff?
Just a few notes.
Thank
As
you.
you are aware, there's a special meeting on November 6th for 2 particular cases. Appreciate the chair and everybody's accommodation of that. If you're going to attend, I know the applicants that will be here. One may be participating virtually, but they were very appreciative of the opportunity. Because they do have a long distance to drive, and we made sure that we told them we only have 45 minutes before the council meeting, so if we aren't able to finish business.
Right.
We.
Thank you.
Yep. And then
And so that is just one case, right? Oh, sorry.
No, no, I'm just asking, it's only a 45-minute meeting. I'll be here for that event especially. Okay?
Correct. Yep. after
And we
the-
do want to note, it's an unusual date and an unusual time.
Yes,
5
5
p.m.
o'clock on November
Oh,
6th.
5 p.m.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And
it's
then-
a Thursday.
It's a Wednesday.
Oh, it's a Wednesday?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you shifted. Okay.
November 6th.
Okay.
It's on the
I'm
calendar.
sorry.
The next announcement is the
When-
move for
Right.
the November regular meeting will be on Thursday,
That's-
November 25th at its regular time of
Regular
6:30 PM.
Okay.
And that it will be a heavy caseload. There's 6 or
5?
7 at this.
Oh, 6 or
Yeah,
7.
we have quite a few.
Just like old times.
I'll bring snacks and we'll make sure to have water and, yeah, so. And then just for clarification as well, I know we send out, and Barbara does a great job of like sending out the packets. I think we use Dropbox.
Yep.
And then we also send them out via email. Is there a preference for one or the other? Would you rather us not clog up your inbox? What would you rather us
Dropbox
do?
links are nice because then I don't have them make up like, I don't know how big these files are, but.
Okay.
We'd still get an email saying that something's uploaded to the
Sure, I want to
Dropbox.
do like 5 megs of it.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll still get an email from Dropbox saying, hey, this thing's in there, but
7% right now.
is that what the preference of?
Yeah, I'm fine with Dropbox.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool, then we will go ahead and move in that direction. And then I'd like to turn over to Sailor.
No major announcements, but going forward, I'm going to be trying to kind of fit into Ricky's shoes a little bit in this position. So in the next meetings going forward, I'll be kind of moving into that position. So it's a pleasure to get to meet all of you and work with you in the future.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Sam.
Welcome.
So as our zoning
miss you,
administrator, pardon me?
I'll miss you.
I know. I'll be around a little bit longer, but yes. But yeah, Sailor's day-to-day will be is processing building permits and obviously taking a look at those. And if there are requests or needs for variance relief, he'll be the front line and get those processed and get them before you all. So we really appreciate you coming on board. So it'll be very good. And now we'll conclude announcements.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And then I guess I'll move to adjourn
Second.
this regular meeting for today's date, October 23rd.
Yeah. Wait for
Seconded.
a red light to.
And we are adjourned.